The skies above Relkarathri turned black without warning a few hours ago. They were bright and clear to suns, shining over wide grasslands, white towers rising across the cities, and children laughing in open courtyards. Now, those same towers were dust. The people looked up in horror. A dark shape had appeared in orbit, huge, spiked, silent. Then came the light, blinding, burning. The first city vanished. No sound, no warning, just fire. In the control tower of Station 7, panic spread. Scientists ran between terminals. Communications failed. Drones shut down. Their defensive satellites didn't fire back because there were none. Relkarathri had no military. Why would it? They were peaceful researchers, builders, diplomats. They didn't fight, and they never thought someone would bring war to them. The governor of Relkarathri, Marin Val, stared at the burning horizon from her command balcony. Ash was falling like snow. The ground shook beneath her boots. She turned to her assistant. Get a signal out to the council. They've already responded, ma'am. And the assistant looked down. They've denied action. They say Relkarathri is outside protected zones. Marin clenched her fists. We are part of the Union. They said you were scientific, not strategic. Silence fell. Then she whispered, they've left us to die. On the outskirts of Trell City, a father and daughter hid in the shadows of a broken building. The girl's name was Sevi, just 9 cycles old. She held a small glowing cube to her chest. It played soft music, a lullaby her mother used to sing before she passed. Her father, Drenkor, pressed his ear to a shortwave receiver. Static. No replies. No ships coming. Nothing but the sound of fire and distant screams. Sevi looked up at him. Will someone come? Dren didn't answer right away. She asked again, softer. Someone will help, right? He looked at her tired face, then hugged her tight. No one ever does. At the last surviving comes tower. 3 engineers stood around a broken console. We can't break through the jamming field, one of them said. Another one whispered, try the old protocols, the ones from the pre-council days. The team leader frowned. That tech's ancient. It hasn't been used, and it's the only system that doesn't rely on the Union's network. They all looked at each other. Then he flipped a switch as a rusty satellite, hidden in Relkara's upper orbit, blinked awake. And far away across the stars, a forgotten relay caught the signal. It read, urgent attack in progress. Unknown ships, mass casualties, please help. Somewhere in Sol system, beneath the icy surface of a moon orbiting Jupiter, a deep black chamber sat untouched for years. Inside that chamber, dust, cables, and a cold AI core marked Terracom Sec Protocol 7. The distress signal from Relkarathri echoed into the ancient system. For a moment nothing, then, signal verified. Classification, emergency alpha. Lights turned on one by one. Steel doors unlocked. A beacon fired silently across space toward Earth's surface. Earth United Terran Command, Bunker, Arctic Depth 14. The screen blinked red. General Kara Lynn, sitting alone in the operations room, looked up from her tablet. She hadn't seen a red alert in 20 years. Computer, she said, repeat signal. The room responded in a flat male voice. Incoming civilian distress call. Origin Relkarathri. Classification, planetary termination event. No allied response logged. Kara frowned. Why us? The computer answered coldly, because no one else responded. Across the world, old military satellites powered on. Shipyards lit up. Engines fired in deep storage bays. The Terran Supreme Fleet, long thought decommissioned, began to awaken. A siren sounded across defense. Command all personnel to stations. Black Sky Protocol activated. Back on Relkarathri, Governor Marin stared at the last city burning. Her eyes were red from smoke and tears. Her team was gone. Only a few wounded guards stood with her now. A camera drone hovered nearby, recording a final message. If you're seeing this, we were left alone, she said into the lens. The council turned their backs. The galaxy chose silence, but we chose to stand. A distant explosion cut her off. The building shook. She stood taller. To whoever finds this, tell our story. Underground, Dren held Savi close as the sky rumbled above them. He had no more lies left. She whispered, it's getting dark. Yes, he said softly, just stay with me. A loud boom echoed across the land. But this time, it was different. Not like the others. Not like a bomb. It was a sound no one had heard in generations. A warp gate opening. Above Relkarathri, space twisted. A massive rift opened in the stars. From it, a Terran Vanguard frigate emerged, black, angular, covered in armor plating, with the emblem of Earth glowing across its hull. Behind it another ship, and another, and more, one after another. Terran warships poured into orbit like a storm of metal giants. Cruisers, destroyers, support crafts, carriers. The Terran Supreme Fleet had arrived. In the Relkaran sky, the black clouds broke. People across the planet looked up. And they saw the impossible. Hope cliffhanger ending inside the lead Terran vessel. Admiral Carolyn stood at the front of the war deck. She watched the burning world below. Then she said just 4 words. Set targeting to Zarn. No more silence. Far above Relkarathri, the sky was no longer quiet. Now it roared. Terran warships, sleek, black and glowing with old power, spread across the upper atmosphere like hunting wolves. Some moved in tight formation. Others broke off, scanning the burning world below. From the largest ship, the TSV Titanum, came the first human broadcast to the people of Relkara 3. This is the United Terran Command. Your signal was received. Help has arrived. All over the dying planet, survivors looked at the sky and cried. Deep Space Zarn Fleet Command inside the Zarn Dominion mothership. Lord Captain Shurl watched new data stream in unknown ships entering orbit. His officer hissed. Massive Terran holes. Multiple classes, no diplomatic signal. Shurl snarled. Earth, the death. They must have heard the call. The Zarn officer laughed cruelly. A few aging warships don't scare us. Another alert appeared. More ships, then even more. Dozens. All Terran. Shurl's red eyes narrowed. This wasn't a rescue mission, he growled. This is war. Earth. United Terran Command far below. Earth's icy crust. Command bunker depth 14 was alive with motion. Holograms of enemy positions. Orbit maps. Fleet diagnostics all glowing across massive displays. Admiral Carolyn stood tall in the command chamber. Her voice was calm, but cold. The status of Vanguard units. Our operations officer responded. Fleet Kronos and Fleet Saber now in orbit. Ground scans in progress. Enemy structures confirmed. All Relkaran survivors tagged. Kara nodded. Start cleanup protocols. Behind her, a young officer hesitated. Admiral, this will be the first full deployment of the Supreme Fleet since the Jupiter massacre. Kara turned. Then let it be remembered. Relkara 3. Surface. The air rumbled as drop pods fell from orbiter and Marines inside each one. They landed hard, smashing into zone positions like thunderbolts. Sergeant Ives, leading the first team, stepped out of his pod with his rifle raised. His armor was dented, old, and stained, but it worked. Zarn drones opened fire. Ives didn't flinch. Returned fire, he said quietly. A second later, plasma tore through the sky. The enemy's weapons, so deadly against civilians, meant little against Terran armor. The Zarn screamed. Then they fell. Inside a ruined shelter, Drenkor and his daughter Sevi heard a new sound. Heavy boots, marching. The door burst open and light flooded in. 2 human soldiers stood there, Terran flags on their shoulders, helmets glowing with HUD lights. Dreen raised his hands in panic, but the soldier simply nodded. You're safe, the Marine said. Get to the evac point. Dreen's mouth trembled. You came. The soldier glanced down at Sevi and smiled. We always come, eventually. Hi. Orbit the Titanum and the bridge of the Terran flagship. Data poured in. Zarn ground bases marked. Enemy fleets forming in Sector 6. Reported an AI unit. Carolyn stared at the map. Time to first strike. 17 seconds. She tapped the glass table once. Fire. Space. 8 Terran warships moved in perfect formation. Their forward cannons glowed white. The Zarn fleet began to react. Too late. Massive beams of energy cut through the darkness. 3 Zarn cruisers exploded in less than 5 seconds. One tried to escape but collided with debris and vanished in flame. Terran ships didn't cheer, they simply moved to the next target. Relkara 3 underground refuge. Governor Marin Val watched live feeds from a Terran Marine drone. Zarn strongholds were falling one by one. Earth's soldiers moved like ghosts, swift, quiet, and exact. Beside her, her assistant whispered, "They're not just saving us, they're taking the war back." Marin nodded. This isn't a rescue, it's a statement. Drainery Homeworld Galactic Council Assembly far from the war zone. The council gathered in cold silence. Leaders of dozens of species reviewed the images from Ariel Kara-3. They saw Terran warships darken the skies. They saw plasma beams destroy Zarn fleets. They saw orbital footage of human drop pods landing into fire and walking out unharmed. A Sorel diplomat leaned forward. Earth has reawakened, a Gralian elder hissed. We agreed they would never rise again. They were too dangerous. Attack it. Third counselor whispered. Too dangerous to trust, but not too weak to forget. No one said it out loud, but they all knew they should have answered the call. Titanum Fleet Channel Alpha. Kara Lynn stood at the front of the command deck. All enemy installations neutralized in Sector 4, said her ops officer. Remaining forces retreating. Pursue, she ordered. But Admiral Relkara is safe now. Kara turned slowly. And what about the next world? The next silence. We didn't come this. That ash was still falling. Even though Earth's fleet now roamed the skies above Relkara 3, the battle wasn't over yet. Down below, in the broken city of Trelos, a handful of Relkaran fighters and survivors were still trapped in the lower sectors. The Zarn Dominion's ground troops had not retreated. They were hunting, burning, and executing every hiding civilian they found. Earth had arrived, but the pain hadn't ended, not yet. Underground tunnels. Sector 12. Captain Ellen Voss, one of the last remaining security officers from the Relkaran Planetary Guard, crouched in the dark, sweat pouring down her face. She wasn't trained for war. She had studied diplomacy, worked in planetary transport, but now she held a plasma pistol in one hand, her other hand clutching the shoulder of a wounded teenager who had taken shrapnel in the leg. Keep pressure on it, she whispered to the boy. Stay awake. They were surrounded. Through cracks in the rubble above, she could hear the screeches of the Zarn hunters. Their armor made an eerie clicking sound as they moved part insect, part machine. Behind her, 2 more civilians shivered. In silence, trying not to cry, Wass's voice trembled. They'll be here soon. Earth Fleet come link. Dropship Channel 9 Marine Team. We have confirmed Relkaran life signs in Sector 12. Sergeant Dom Reyes, a Terran ground commander, glanced at his squad. No air support in that zone, said the pilot. Too many tall structures still collapsing. Reyes strapped on his helmet. Then we go in on foot. Trello's surface, the last stand, begins as Captain Voss tried to move the injured boy through the broken tunnel. The wall behind her exploded. Zarn shock troopers stepped into the space-towering creatures with sharp metal limbs and glowing red eyes. Voss aimed and fired. Her pistol hissed. One Zarn staggered but didn't fall. The civilians screamed. The injured boy cried out. The Zarn raised its blade to strike. Then dash, boom. A section of ceiling above them collapsed not from a weapon, but from a Terran drop pod, smashing through the stone. Dust and metal flew. Reyes stepped out of the crater, his heavy boots shaking the floor. His rifle lit up. 1 shot, then 2. The first Zarn's head exploded. The second tried to leap but was cut in half mid-air. Voss blinked. Stunned. You're from Earth. Reyes helped her to her feet. You called. We came. Back in orbit, Terran flagship Titanium Admiral Kara Lynn watched. The battle maps update. Civilians secured in Sector 12, her officer reported, but Sector 14 is collapsing. A technician turned. We've picked up a massive underground heat spike Zarn fusion reactor detected. Looks like they've built a self-destruct core. Kara narrowed her eyes. Why? They're going to take the whole city with them. Below ground, Sector 14, the Zarn Supreme Executor, a high-ranking field commander, stood in the center of a massive energy chamber. The core glowed blue beneath his feet. Dozens of his warriors worked to overload the fusion system. If it detonated, it would level a 20-kilometer radius. The Executor activated his comlink. The humans fight with fire, he growled. But they forget we can burn too. He looked toward the ceiling and will drag them into the flames. Back on the surface, Marine teams mobilized. Sergeant Reyes's cum buzzed. He read the message and froze. Evac required. Zarn core at full charge. You have 6 minutes. Reyes looked around at the survivors he had just rescued. Dozens now, all looking to him. He didn't hesitate. We're not leaving. Not yet. He turned to his tech specialist, Callum Briggs. Can you jam the signal and delay the detonation? Callum shook his head. Only one way. You'd have to shut it down manually from the fusion chamber. That's a suicide run, Voss said. Reyes checked his ammo. I've been on 3 of those still breathing. Underground charge. Terran Marines strike a 6-man team moved through the tunnels like shadows. One carried breaching charge. 2 others carried shield drones. They passed piles of ash and blackened corpses, citizens who never made it to shelter. Reyes didn't speak. He knew what this mission meant. XARN fusion core. Final confrontation. The Terran team reached the chamber entrance. Zarn guards stood in place, 20 of them. Reyes raised his hand, then dropped it. The Marines attacked. Plasma burned. Drones exploded. Metal screamed. One by one the Zarn fell, but so did 2 Terran soldiers. Reyes made it to the control core just as the countdown hit. 058. Callum shouted in his ear. Pull the override. Rewire the top panel. Reyes ripped the panel open. Sparks flew. He reached for the core length in a Zarn blade. Struck him in the side. He screamed but didn't stop. Blood ran down his armor. He pulled the wire. The core went dark. Silence then. A slow breath. He was alive. Barely the remaining Marines. Pulled him free. Above ground. The evac alarms silenced. From orbit. The Titanum confirmed. Sector 14 neutralized. No detonation. Survivors, 73. Later that night, Relkara safe zone Captain Voss stood with Reyes as medics treated him. You didn't have to come, she said. We did, he whispered. Voss looked to the stars where the Terran ships still circled overhead. Why? Reyes smiled weakly. Because no one else ever does. Final scene, back aboard the Titanum. Admiral Kara Lynn sent a private message to Terran High Command. Her voice was steady. Relkara 3 has been secured. Civilian casualties, high. Enemy resistance, broken, but it's not over. The Zarn still move, and the Council still watches. Earth's supreme fleet is not returning home. Not until every world like Relkara is safe. We were silent for too long. Never again. She hit send. Cliffhanger. A transmission appears on Terran screens. A new world is under attack. Different name. Same enemy. And the people cry out with a single message. Earth, if you can hear us, please come. Carolyn turns to her officer. Set course. The sun rose over Relkara 3, casting light on the broken cities and scorched fields. But for the first time in weeks, the sky was quiet. No screaming, no explosions, no enemy ships, just the shadow of Earth's warships slowly moving overhead. The Zarn had been beaten back. For now, Terran fleet orbits TSV. Kara Lynn stood on the command deck watching the planet below through a massive curved window. Status report, she asked. Her officer replied. Major civilian zones secure. Final Zarn patrol wiped out overnight. Marine losses 14 local survivors 3,000 confirmed. Kara didn't smile. She didn't relax. We saved this world, she said, but others are still dying. Another officer stepped forward. We're picking up a flare signal from another system. Drexus 5. Same Zarn signatures. Kara nodded. Prepare the fleet. She turned to her comms tech. Send a message to the galaxy. The message across the stars, on every open channel. A single voice echoed, to all who suffer under the Zarn. We are the supreme fleet of Earth. You were abandoned. We were forgotten. But no more. If you can send a signal, we will come. Relkaba. Capital ruins down on the surface. The people of Relkara began walking out of the shelters. Children covered in dust pointed at the giant Terran ships above. Some laughed. Some cried. One man fell to his knees and whispered, "They came. Earth came." Relkara and Governor Marin Vel walked through the main square where Terran Marines handed out rations, water, and medicine. She stopped in front of Sergeant Reyes, now leaning on a metal cane after his injuries underground. "You saved our people," she said quietly. Reyes shook his head. "We just bought time. You're the ones who kept hope alive." A crowd gathered, cameras recorded, people chanted one word, Earth. Council Core World Galactic Parliament in a tall shining tower on a peaceful planet light years away. The Galactic Council met again. This time their faces were pale. The Relkara footage played before them, Terran Marines pushing back Zarn forces, a single Terran cruiser taking down 3 enemy ships, Relkaran civilians cheering beside human soldiers. An elder counselor spoke. Earth was silent for nearly a century. Another replied, "Because we made them silent. We labeled them too dangerous, but now," said a third, "they're heroes." "No," said the first counselor coldly. "They're awake." Zarn Frontier Zonin, a mining world deep in Zarn-controlled space. Alarms blared across the main base. Enemy ships had been detected. Not local rebels, not pirates. The readings were Terran. The Zarn war commander snarled. "They wouldn't dare strike here," his officer shouted. "They already have." The lights turned red, then the sky turned white. Outer space. Battle of Drexus 5 begins. The Terran Supreme Fleet arrived. Above Drexus 5 with no warning. No diplomats. No peace talks. Just steel and fire. From the Titanum. Carolyn spoke to her commanders. No negotiations, no signals. They burned cities. "We bring fire." Then the first wave launched. Dozens of Terran drop pods rained from the sky like comets. Each one carried Marines in full battle gear, heavily armored, armed with shock weapons, and ready for war. The Zarn met them with orbital batteries. It didn't matter. Terran counterfire silenced the batteries in under 12 seconds on the ground. Drexus 5 colonies inside a Relkaran-style outpost on Drexus 5. Alien workers screamed and ran for cover as Zarn units pushed closer. A father shielded his family. Behind a collapsed wall, he whispered, "Please, someone." Then he heard the drop pod hit the ground beside them. A Terran soldier stepped out, steam rising from his armor, the Earth flag glowing on his shoulder. "Get down," he shouted, raising his rifle. In moments the Zarn troops were cut down. The father stared in shock. You're from Earth." The Marine reloaded. "We're everywhere now." Titanum war mode activated. Enemy fleet closing in. A tech officer called. Carolyn didn't blink. "Unleash Kronos across the stars." The Kronos fleet, Earth's oldest and most powerful battle group, moved into attack position. They didn't. Terran Supreme Fleet had done the impossible. They had arrived when no one else did. They had saved Relkara 3, then Drexus 5 now. They were hunting, but Admiral Carolyn knew something the galaxy didn't. This was not a rescue mission anymore. This was retribution. Deep space Terran operations commanding a secure Terran vessel. High-ranking officers gathered around a table lit with galaxy maps. All the red dots represented worlds attacked or erased by the Zarn Dominion. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Commander Vance, head of intelligence, pointed at one red dot that blinked differently than the rest. "This one isn't just a base," he said. "It's a stronghold." The name glowed on the screen. Zarn Prime Sector TO, Fortress World. Silence filled the room. It was the Zarn's home defense system, the heart of their control. Kara stood still. "If we strike there," Vance continued, "we won't be saving colonies. We'll be starting a war that never ends." She stared coldly at the glowing dot. "Then we finish it in one blow." Orbit of Zarn Prime. Days later, the Supreme Fleet arrived with no warning. No declarations, no broadcasts, no chance to negotiate. They had scanned every enemy position, every orbital gun, and every emergency warp gate. Terran warships moved like chess pieces already, knowing how the game would end on inside. Zarn Prime Planetary Throne Hall. The High Strategist of the Zarn Dominion stood before a giant viewing window. Hundreds of defense cannons lined the skies. Shield barriers glowed. In place, above, thousands of Zarn ships floated, waiting for the human fleet to arrive. Then one ship came, just one, large, silent, dark like a shadow. The High Strategist laughed. "One Terran cruiser. Is this their joke?" His second-in-command hissed. "We can destroy that ship in seconds." But then, The ship vanished. TSV Phantom, Earth's ghost vessel inside a special stealth-class ship called the Phantom. Captain Rhea Dalton activated the cloak again. Target scans complete. Her AI said, weak points marked. She nodded. Send the data to Kara. Then she smiled. Let's ruin their day. Back at the fleet, Titanum War Deck Admiral Kara Lynn received the final intel drop. We have their shield patterns. An officer said their fleet density. Reactor placements. She gave a single order. Activate hammer protocol. Across the fleet, massive cannons moved into position. Each Terran warship powered up its most dangerous payload: kinetic rods, heavy lasers, AI-guided missiles, railguns, and charged plasma bolts. But at the center floated one ship that had never fired a weapon before. It looked different. No windows, no heat signature. Just black metal and one word written on its side. Judgment. Judgment-class superweapon, Earth's answer to silence and board. The massive structure, sealed deep within its core, Earth's most secret technology, prepared to fire. It had been built after Earth's last great war, never tested. Designed not to win battles but to end wars. Its main weapon, a graviton imploder bomb that could erase a city without breaking the crust, unless they wanted to. Carolyn stood aboard Titanum and gave the final order. Release Judgment. Zon Prime. Chaos begins. The first rod dropped from orbit. It didn't explode. It crushed an entire Zon mountain. Base disappeared under 200 tons of metal falling at orbital speed. Then the second wave came. Missiles screamed across the skies. Enemy fighters were vaporized mid-orbital. Stations cracked in half like glass. The Zon launched their fleet in desperation. They never reached the battle line. Earth's ships had already moved. Terran AI pilots fired faster than organic minds could think. Hundreds of Zon ships exploded before they even locked on targets. The High Strategist screamed, "What are these monsters?" Final blow. Judgment fires high above the planet. The black ship Judgment opened its forward bay. Inside, a small sphere, glowing with artificial gravity and stable, swirling, humming. The sphere was dropped. It hit atmosphere and then silence for 5 seconds. The world seemed to stop. Then a brilliant blue ring erupted across Zon Prime. Not an explosion, a collapse. Every structure within 100 kilometers was crushed in a single instant. No fire, no heat, just absence. Gone. Terran broadcast across the stars after the battle. The galaxy received another message. This was Zon Prime. We came with fire not because we wanted war, but because you left us no other way. To every silent observer, we do not forgive silence. We do not forget pain. If you let others burn, expect the hammer to fall. Cliffhanger ending. In a dark council chamber, leaders from across the galaxy watched the footage. Some were terrified, others stunned. A quiet voice spoke in the shadows. They used to be like us, but we left them behind. A reply came from a quiet elder. No, we feared them, and now we must answer for that fear. Then, a warning blared across the council's network. Unknown Terran ship entering restricted space. And it's not responding to hails. Earth wasn't retreating. Earth was spreading. The fire from Zon Prime still burned in the stars. News of its destruction spread faster than any fleet in hidden corners of the galaxy. People cheered. Some cried, others trembled because Earth hadn't just won a battle, they had delivered a message, and now, the ones who had watched and stayed silent knew they might be next. Galactic Council Coreworld Hidden Chamber meeting. The Council of Worlds had not met in person in over a decade now. They met in secret. 12 powerful species, all afraid. The Sorel High Speaker stood first. Earth was supposed to be extinct, or at least ... dormant. The Gralian warlord grunted. We feared them after the last solar conflict, so we isolated them, blocked their signals, cut trade. They cut through Zon Prime in hours, whispered the Zoran Queen. That was no skirmish, that was an execution. They've become something else. A long pause. Then the oldest member of the council, the blind, shriveled teeth. Slowly, we abandoned Rebkara. We stayed quiet during the Drexus siege. We called Earth unstable. She opened a small screen showing Earth's warships spreading across systems. We are now reaping what we allowed. Earth's supreme fleet, on the moving board, the TSV Titanum. Admiral Carolyn stood over a star map. Colored points marked every Zon base, hidden prison colony, and strategic fleet route, all of them gathered from decoded enemy data. Expression was calm, but her voice was like ice. Target, Drennick 4, Zon, Fleet Depot. They store slaves there. Her officer, Commander Vance, frowned. Should we warn the Council, or request clearance from the Union? Kara didn't even look up. We don't ask. Drennick 4, Zon slave world on a dusty red planet filled with smoke and steel. Thousands of alien prisoners worked in silence. Chains around their necks, weak rations, watchers everywhere. One small child, skin pale eyes bright, looked up and saw something in the clouds, a flicker dot, then another dot, then shadows large moving fast. One of the guards hissed in panic, alerted Buff, but it was already too late. Terran dropships screamed down from orbit like meteors. Then came the thunder. Ground assault. Operation Ember 4. The Marines hit the ground in seconds. Their armor glowed with kinetic shielding. Their rifles sang with energy. The slave masters ran. Some fought, all died. Terran engineers cracked the prison gates. Medical teams followed, distributing food, power cells, and emergency care. A small child tried to speak. A translator drone hummed, "You came." The child asked. A Terran medic nodded. "You're free now." Above the planet, Terran message broadcast once the Zahn fleet depot exploded in orbit. Admiral Kara Lynn sent a message, this time not to the galaxy, but to a specific address, the private channel of the Galactic Council. Her voice was steady. "You watched as Relkara burned. You said nothing during Drexus, and now you hide in your towers while others scream for help. We are not asking for permission. We are answering calls that you ignored. If you fear the fire, maybe you shouldn't have lit the match." Council emergency debate. The chamber exploded in arguments. "Earth is declaring war on the Council," shouted one ambassador. "They never declared anything," answered another. "They're just acting." The Zoran Queen hissed. "If we call them terrorists, we lose public trust." The Tithilda raised one withered hand. "Let me speak to them." Silence fell. No fleets, no orders, just a voice. Terran flagship Titnum. Unexpected call in Carolyn's command deck. A blinking symbol appeared. A council diplomatic request. Everyone stared. "Answer it," she said. The face of the Tithelder appeared. Her voice was soft. "Do you believe?" "You're right." Kara didn't move. "No." "Then why continue?" Kara stepped closer. "Because someone has to." The elder asked, "And what if this sparks galactic war?" Kara's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll bring all the fire we need." Drenic 4, post-Batalus, the Supreme Fleet refueled and the liberated aliens were taken to safe worlds. Kara stood alone for a moment. She looked at the stars. One of her younger officers approached, permission to speak freely. She nodded. "You ever feel the weight of this?" Kara's face didn't change. "Every day." She turned, her voice low. But the galaxy didn't want peace. They wanted quiet. They wanted the weak to suffer in silence. She looked back to the stars. They didn't want to hear screams. So now they'll hear us instead. Cliffhanger ending. Somewhere deep in a forgotten system, a new signal was detected. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a warning, an automated message, repeated across old Terran frequencies. "They are coming." Not Zahn, not Council, something else. Buried, silent, waking up because of the noise. The signal ended with static. Then a new word appeared on Terran. "Command monitors, red classification, EX ovoid entity, unknown origin." The galaxy was about to learn Earth wasn't the loudest. Earth's Supreme Fleet had become a symbol of terror for the Zahn, for the cowardly Council, and for any who thought the weak would stay silent. But now, a new signal had changed everything. Not a distress call, not a message for help, a warning. TSV, Titanum Command. Dick Admiral Kara Lynn stared at the holographic replay of the strange transmission. The message was garbled, but one phrase stood out clearly. "They are not Zahn, not from here." Waking up because of the noise. Commander Vance leaned forward. "Ma'am, this came from an old Terran deep space satellite. Model Tempest X9. It was lost 82 years ago." Kara asked where. "Outer Rim, system designation. Vortex 0, nothing on charts, no colonies, no moons, just a black hole." She nodded slowly. "And now it's transmitting again," Vance added, "and something is blocking signals around it. No probes can get through." Kara tapped the table. "Assemble Recon Group 7, we're going to see what woke up." Deep space, the forgotten Edge 6 Terran ships, fast, silent, and equipped for stealth, entered a region no one had mapped for over a century. At its center, a massive black hole called Drekar Ma. Around it, space shimmered oddly, like the stars themselves were bending away. They launched 2 probes. Both vanished. Then one of the stealth frigates picked up a shape. At first, they thought it was a ship. Then they realized it was moving without thrust, shifting, turning, and absorbing light. Captain Shay Merrick, leading the recon mission, whispered, "What is that?" The AI scanned it. No heat, no metal, no tech signature. But then, it looked back. Contact level unknown on board the TSV Warden. Alarms blared. The entity was approaching fast. But there was no drive system, no signal. It simply moved like a thought. Suddenly, all screens turned black. Crew members began hearing sounds, voices. Not real ones. Memories, regrets, fears. One pilot screamed and collapsed. His brain had been rewritten. Captain Merrick shouted, "Shut down all external sensors." Now, too late. The creature touched the hull of the Warden, and then the entire ship folded inward like paper. Gone. Without a sound. Titanum emergency transmission only. One frigate escaped. Its data came in broken fragments, but Kara saw enough unknown entity near Drekar Ma, capable of erasing ships. Causes psychological breakdown. Reacted to Terran battle broadcasts. She turned to a bridge crew. "We made too much noise." Earth-Terran War Council in a massive vault beneath Antarctica. Earth's highest military leaders gathered. Kara stood before them, speaking through secure link. "This isn't just another alien empire. This is something ancient, something that listens." General Rourke asked, "Do you believe it's intelligent?" Kara didn't blink. "I believe it's hungry." Rourke asked the question everyone feared. "Can we fight it?" Kara answered simply, We're Terrans, we've fought worse than death. We'll fight this too. Unknown space, the awakening grows far away, in a space where no light reached. The thing pulsed, now aware of Earth, now reaching out, not in peace, not in war, in curiosity. Other shapes began to stir near it. Massive, slow, as if waking from a long sleep, the void whispered, and one word echoed back from its center: Earth. Supreme Fleet Assembly. The Black Protocol Kira returned. To the Titanum with orders: deploy stealth sensors across the galactic rim, create fallback bunkers on key colonies. Ready the extinction-class weapons, her engineer asked. Do you think this thing will come for us? Kara replied. Already is. Then she walked to a sealed chamber and placed her hand on a scanner. Inside was a weapon humanity had never used, labeled Project Black Star. Her voice was quiet. Begin warm-up sequence. Relkarathri, a strange scion, the rebuilt world of Relkarathri. People looked up once again. Not in fear, but in wonder. A new light had appeared above the stars. Not a Terran ship, not a Zarn vessel, something older. It did not move like anything they knew. It watched on and then disappeared. Governor Marinval whispered, I think something found us. Cliffhanger ending inside Earth's moon, where secret vaults hid relics of forgotten wars. An AI that hadn't activated in 100 years powered back on. Its voice echoed in the sealed chamber. Deep threat detected. Protocol Solargate unlocking. Earth will not fall in silence. Earth will scream back. The stars were no longer quiet. Something ancient had awakened. Something that didn't speak, didn't conquer, didn't negotiate. It watched, and then it erased. But unlike the other species of the galaxy, Earth didn't bow. It sharpened its blade. Earth's moon project, Solargate, deep under the surface of the moon. In a sealed Terran vault, Project Solargate powered up. It had only one purpose: to open a controlled rift into unknown space, to reach what cannot be reached. Terran High Command had made a choice. We won't wait for the threat to arrive. We'll bring the fight to it. TSV Titanum Supreme Fleet Ready. Admiral Carolyn stood before the full fleet. Over 200 Terran warships. All fully armed, all battle-hardened. She addressed every soldier, engineer, and commander on a wideband channel. You weren't born for this. You were born on farms, in cities, in schools. But you stand here now not to conquer, not to run, but because the galaxy turned its back on the weak. And Earth heard the scream. What's coming is older than the stars, but it has never met us. Solargate opens from the moon. The rift tore through the blackness. It hummed like a voice. It bent space like paper. And through it they saw the void. Not dark, not light, just wrong. The first Terran ships entered the void. No maps, no rules, no mercy. Inside the void, sensors failed. Communications dropped. Some ships saw different versions of reality, hallucinations, echoes, or nothing at all. But the Terran fleet kept going. They weren't explorers. They were a wall of fire, moving toward whatever threatened the galaxy first. Contact. The entity reveals itself. It didn't look like a ship. It didn't even look alive, just a shape in the blackest starless wound, bigger than planets, and pulsing Terranase began to fail. Pilots cried out. Memories flickered. Not there. Own, the entity whispered without sound. Why do you march into death? Carolyn replied through the Titanum's main broadcast. Because it's our choice, and because you looked at the galaxy and saw food. But when you look at Earth, you'll see your last mistake. Final battle begins. The unthinkable. Fight. The Judgment-class superweapon launched first. A singularity torpedo tore into the entity's mass. The void screamed. Reality cracked but held. Then the full Terran fleet opened fire. Railguns, orbital rods, plasma barrages, graviton cannons. Every weapon fired until cores glowed red and barrels melted. The entity struck back, not with weapons, but with mind-bending force. Entire squadrons vanished in silence. Others turned on each other, tricked by illusions, but Earth's fleet kept fighting. Not for survival. For every forgotten colony, every burned world. Every child who had once asked, will someone come? This time, Earth answered for them all. One final move, the heart of Earth when all else failed. Kara Lynn gave the last command. Initiate Project Ash. The TSV Titanum, Earth's flagship, set a collision course straight into the entity's core, carrying a prototype bomb, the Starbreaker. She looked to her crew. Go home, she said. Your job's done. They refused to leave. And so, together, they charged. Explosion in the void. The entity reached forward. Too late, the Titanum crashed into the core. The Starbreaker detonated. Light filled the void like a second Big Bang. The stars wept. The dark screamed in silence. Back in the galaxy, a new dawn. Hours later, only one signal made it back through the rift. One simple Terran code. The void was gone. The thing was dead. And Earth's, though bloodied, broken, and bruised, stood tall. Epilogue. Years later, children on Relkara 3 grow up learning about Earth's war on Drexus 5. Statues of Carolyn stand tall, and on hundreds of worlds. When danger rises, aliens no longer pray to gods. They send a message out into the stars. Earth, if you're listening, we need you. And far away, in orbit, above a peaceful moon, a Terran ship appears from the dark. No announcement, no speech, just one line across the sky. We heard you.